Good afternoon, everyone. This is our fourth Alberta SCILS webinar, and we're just getting a few people still coming in here, just a minute past 12, so we're going to let everyone join in. I see we got Beto on the line, Barry, Bean, great to have you here, Bean, and Carissa, Chester, Dr. Ho, always nice to have you here, sir, Judith, Lorna, Scott, Sierra. I'm going to be kind of calling out some names as we see because a lot of our attendees don't actually see each other, just the way the webinar is set up. So we'll just give it another minute or so here. All right, I am going to start this off, and we still have some participants that are joining, and welcome to our fourth Alberta Spinal Cord Injury Learning Seminar webinar. This is on community living, and our topic for this week is accessing peer activities and support networks. And I'm very excited to have an excellent panel today, and I'm going to be introducing them for you. I'm also going to be drawing a little bit of attention to some of the functions that are within this webinar for people that are new. One of the things you'll see is in the middle corner, in the middle of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. And that Q&A box is where we really encourage our participants, our attendees to ask questions. So at any point in time during this webinar, whatever your question may be, if you can put it in the Q&A box, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I'm your moderator. My name is Ule Lagerquist. I'm with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. I also have some wonderful colleagues helping me out to keep an eye on some of the questions. And we will try our very best to make sure that we get to everyone's question. So please put them in the Q&A box. If you have other comments for any one of our attendees or any one of our presenters, you can also mention it in the chat box. We have a couple of things going on today also to get your feedback on. We have some polls, which are fantastic to get information from our community members, such as yourselves, about really who our audience is and what you prefer to see in terms of an actual content topic to present. So please look for some of those polls to come up. We've got Joanna from Praxis, who's very kindly helping us up with this platform, and Joanna's going to be putting things forward for polls kind of throughout our presentation. So let me now introduce our speakers. Our first speaker is Shannon Angelvet. Shannon is a recreation therapist. She works in the Foothills Medical Center. And she graduated from Lethbridge College in 2007. Then she went out to Halifax. She completed her undergrad in 2010 at Dalhousie. She's been working at the Foothills for 8 years. And in those 8 years, she has worked with stroke and brain injury patients, both inpatient and community-based. And the majority of that time has been spent specifically on the spinal cord injury team. Welcome, Shannon. We also have Brandis Lorch, and Brandis is a client service coordinator in Calgary. She's a registered social worker. She has lived experience with spinal cord injury, and she's going on almost about 2 years now with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. Brandis makes a strong contribution to our team at SCILS Alberta. She enjoys organizing care events. She works very closely with the Foothills Medical Center. Welcome, Brandis. We have Pamela Russ. Pam is a recreation therapist. She works at the Glenrose Rehab Hospital with the Spinal Cord General Neurology Unit and outpatient programs. Pam has about 14 years at the Glenrose, with 12 of them specifically on the Spinal Cord Injury Unit. In her spare time, she loves hanging out with her 3 kids and riding horses. I'm jealous. I used to grow up with horses. And last, certainly very far from least, the mighty Steve Cochetier, our wonderful peer coordinator. Steve has been with us for a little over 2 years. His passion is to help others that have neurological disorders. Steve also helps his peers with medical supply needs and to distribute the Myolin FES cycle across Canada through Euro Medical Supplies. Welcome, Steve. Welcome all to our panelists, and now I'm going to quickly turn this over to Shannon Angelvet, who's going to be beginning the conversation, and I will be stopping sharing my screen and looking out for any questions. Shannon, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, I think that should be good. So thanks, I'm Shannon. I work at the Foothills Medical Center on the spinal cord injury team as one of two recreation therapists on the spinal cord team, specifically myself and Kim Francis. Oh. Sorry, it's just not switching slides on me, for me.
Try the up and down button.
No. Oh, never mind. I think I need to enable. Sorry, I think I need to enable editing. Is that correct?
You may try that one. It should let you scroll through the slides. And if it doesn't work for you, Shannon, then I have your slides and I can drive it from this side too.
Okay. Sorry. We might need to do that.
No worries. That's why we have, let me get your slides set up for you here.
Shoot, I'm sorry.
No worries at all. I will flip over and I'll just ask you to stop your screen sharing, Shannon, and I will share screen. And there we go. And you just let me know when you want to advance slides, Shannon.
Thanks so much. Okay, so what is recreation on Unit 58? These are kind of the way that we explain it to our patients. So helping our patients return to or get close to doing what they were doing before and or what they want to do going forward. So showing them that what they were doing before and even more so is still possible, and providing our patients the opportunity to try new things with our support as part of their rehab process to help them continue to live the life they choose, again, going forward. The next slide. Thanks. So I'm just going to go through these. These are kind of our areas, and usually in this order that we work with our patients that come to Unit 58. So we usually start with functional education, move into some leisure education, transportation, community resources, and then outings. So where we start, we have the functional education, which involves our peer-driven education series that was put together by our interdisciplinary team. It runs twice a week on a cycle, so it'll continuously run. The topics are understanding spinal cord injury, skincare, bowel and bladder, nutrition, sexual health, pain and shoulder health, building resilience, recreation, and exploring the community. The idea is that our patients will continue to attend these sessions throughout their rehab stay, and that some of the topics might be more relevant to them at various stages of their rehab. And then if patients are able to tolerate it, they're able to come, and they're welcome to come start attending these sessions while they're still on the acute unit and waiting to move into rehab. So we try to have at least 2 peer volunteers, and that's where Brandis comes in, at each of these sessions to be able to provide the real life experience to each topic. And then as for our one-to-one treatments, we usually start with focusing on the functional tasks, such as sitting tolerance, overall endurance, and maybe being able to move into fine motor skills, upper and lower body movement that can be done even through playing cards or various board games. Sorry, that's just a little bit from the previous slide, but so the leisure education can be a lot of things. It can be educating patients on activities that they enjoyed doing before their injury, or it can be introducing patients to new activities that they have never done before. The idea is to educate our patients on the importance of engaging in leisure and recreation activities and the benefits of that participation. And to continue to work on or at the very least maintain the strengthening that they have built up in the rehab, and then being able to move that into the community once they're discharged. So then moving on to transportation. So we look at what form of transportation the patients used prior to their injury and what the best option for them is going forward. We do transit training with lots of our patients on public transit if the patient's ready to do so. And then if not, we register a lot of our patients with Access Calgary kind of as a stepping stone, or either as a stepping stone, or with lots of our patients that becomes their main form of transportation. And then with the return to driving process, it has been done before that the process has started while patients are still in rehab. However, usually because of medical issues, the process, it's more common that it starts when the patients come back for their follow-up appointment 2 to 3 months after discharge. We also like to educate our patients on traveling, especially if they like to travel before. We've done a lot of work with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta, as well as Spinal Cord Injury BC have developed great resource tools that I try and provide that to all of my patients. And even if they're not ready, which it can be quite overwhelming, just even put it in a bit of a resource package for them to take with them to resort back to or to refer to when they are ready. And then looking at outings. Our outings are a huge part of their process with our patients. For a lot of them, it's the first time that they're out of the hospital since their injury. We really want to make it as smooth and successful as possible. We do our outings one-on-one and try and plan it to a location that they either would have been before or somewhere that they would like to get back to and continue to go once they're discharged from the hospital. We look at the transportation. How are we going to get there? And is this how they would, would they be able to get there independently using this form of transportation? Their bowel and bladder, the schedules and what day of the week and what time of day it's going to be the best for them to be away from the hospital or away from home, thinking of the future, what their sitting tolerance is. So how long can they be up in their chair for, and that including the travel time to and from the location. And is the location accessible? What are their personal needs that will determine if the facility is going to be accessible, and really advocating for the patients to, call ahead and ask and be really clear and specific of what questions you need to ask to know whether or not a location is going to be accessible for you as an individual. And then kind of how we've adapted during COVID, it's been very, very different. So we've done a lot at the beginning. We did a lot of education using the iPads for patients to be able to connect with their family through FaceTime and Zoom. Taking patients outside during therapy sessions just because they weren't able to do that on their own or have family here to do that for them or with them. Providing patients with virtual tour websites, so different ideas that they could do in their rooms. Directing patients, I've watched a lot of the SCI Alberta website YouTube videos. They were a great resource. I mean, they always are, but usually we kind of direct the patients to do it on their own time, and we just kind of incorporated that into our therapy sessions a lot more. Provided verbal education around transportation and outings because we weren't able to do that as much, well, at all, I guess. And provided portfolios of community resources when they left. So a lot of what we would normally try and do with our patients out in the community, I would end up just printing off the information and putting it in a file for them to take with them, again, so that they can kind of refer to it as the community starts opening up again. And then I found that we referred a lot more patients to outpatient rec therapy, just to be able to follow up, and hopefully the community is a little bit more open up for them to be able to follow up with some of the resources that the patients were given. And then moving forward, our patients are now allowed 2 designated visitors per patient, but still no passes or outings allowed. So that's still a struggle, but the visitors have definitely helped. And we're just starting now the planning process as to what the outings are going to look like going forward, so that when we are given the go-ahead, we have a bit of a plan. So prioritizing what outings are kind of a higher need and really going to make a difference with our patients' quality of life in the community, to prevent isolation on discharge, so that our patients don't just go from the hospital to home and then never go outside because they've never had the opportunity to do it as part of the rehab. And then what can continue to be done virtually. So if there are things that work just as well virtually, that's great. There's a lot that isn't. So we're kind of trying to determine what is and isn't needed to do firsthand. And then determining low risk outings. So what outings we could maybe start with, thinking of, taking Access Calgary to transit training to a park, to an outdoor location. That might be a lower risk than going to, say, a grocery store or a mall. So just kind of prioritizing what over and above what can be done first off. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Shannon. And we see Joanna just put up a little poll for people to get an idea of where all of our participants and community members are coming in from. So if you have a minute to answer some of these little mini polls that are coming up that Joanna's putting on your screen, that would be fantastic and much appreciated. Thank you so much, Shannon. That was excellent. That was a great sort of view from how the Foothills kind of goes about things. And now I'd like to turn it over to Brandis to give a bit of a description of how things work from SCI Alberta, from the Calgary location, working in tandem with the Foothills and what that kind of looks like. Brandis, it's all yours.
Perfect, thanks, Ule. So as Ule kind of said in the beginning, I come to this with lived experience as well. I'm a incomplete quadriplegic, and I've gone through some of the peer connections in the past before and seen the importance of it. So I'm really happy to be able to talk about that today and share it with you. I will just put up my slides. All right. Okay, so today I'm talking about making peer connections, and that says an outpatient experience. Now, it does happen, as Shannon touched on Unit 58 as well, as part of the SAED series. So that happens in there, and so there's only going to be a few peers that people will meet in the hospital. Therefore, it's important afterwards that they're able to make other connections as well. And just to let you know, it may not be happening right now because of the COVID, but there actually is a patient liaison up at the Foothills Hospital. Her name is Casey. And I'm sure after COVID is done, or they're letting people back into the hospital, you'll be able to meet with her and she can help you with peer connections while you're in the hospital as well. Now I just want to read what I put here on this slide and explain it a little bit. So I said, disability does not discriminate. It can happen to anyone. And the reason that I put this is that, you know, if you're wondering that there is someone out there that you can make a peer connection with, we have a large database at SCI Alberta, and there's a good chance that, you know, there's someone of the same age, the same gender, the same injury level, that has similar interests as you, and we'll be able to find that person to match with you. So, you know, there is someone for everyone. So I can go to the next slide. There we are. So I just want to talk about relatable experience, and really with that peer that you would be meeting with, that's kind of what you're looking for. So, you know, have you ever been in a situation where you wish that you had someone to talk to that knows what you're going through? And I've just put, you know, 4 random items down that I do hear often when people are looking for a peer connection. So, I mean, really, I know there consistent UTIs is something that happens in the community, and you know, I'm sure that if you are a person in a wheelchair, you know, it's the 10th time that you're sitting in the medical office with another UTI and you're wondering, geez, is anyone going through these same things that I am? And by no means, you know, can a peer give you medical advice, but they might be able to give you some sort of, you know, tips and tricks along the way that can help you out. Or equipment choices. It is a big world out there for different pieces of equipment, you know, whether it's power, motorized chairs, foldable frame, fixed frame, whatever it may be. Like I myself, I'm on my 3rd Tie-Lite chair. I absolutely love it. So I can talk to anyone about Tie-Lite, but there's so many other choices out there as well that are awesome. And you know, someone can maybe guide you through those equipment choices, what's worked for them and why they would choose something. Now, home care planning, I find people that are on self-managed care, often they, you know, they may need help finding some different ways to be able to search for caregivers and the process in that way. So it's great to be able to talk to someone that has had those same struggles, that can maybe give you some tips on that. And, you know, relationships is a really scary thing post-injury. And, you know, to be able to speak to someone who has the confidence in relationships is really important. Now, fear of the unknown, learning through trial and error. So don't underestimate what you're capable of, or fear the potential boundaries that may come up. Chances are good that a peer has tried it and succeeded it. So, you know, it may seem like a scary thing coming out of the hospital to go traveling, to go on flights. Can you even go on an airplane? Where can you find accessible hotel rooms? What is the access of the destination going to be like? And there's so many options out there. It's not something to be scared of. So why not let someone share their information with you? Going back to school, is the school going to be accessible? Is the classroom going to be accessible? Starting a career, what choices are out there that's going to fit someone with a disability? Being able to ask a peer what they do to be able to sit in their wheelchair for 8 hours a day. How do they get to work on time? How do they even get to work by 8:30 when there's all the different things that they have to deal with in the morning to get ready? And dating, like I said, relationships are a scary thing. There's all different ways to approach dating with a disability, and it doesn't have to be as scary as people think it is. Raising a family is something that I hear quite often. There's a lot of doubts out there that people with disabilities may not be able to have a family or raise a family. And, you know, while it's okay to have these fears, there's help out there available to be able to make you more confident that you're going to be able to move forward doing that. And it's never too long after an injury to reach out. Whether you are a few months post-injury, a year, 5 years, 10 years, it's never too late to reach out. And for example, I'm 15 years post-injury, and I'm now part of a women's SCI Zoom chat group. And if anyone has questions about that, certainly we will give you some contact information. So contact Steve and he'll connect you with me and we can get you involved as well. But what I'm trying to say is every week when I meet up with these women, I learn something new about my injury, different ways to do something. And I'm 15 years out and I am still learning. So there's a chance for everyone out there. Now, it's really important, how do I say this the best way? A little amount of time that you're able to give someone as a peer can make a big difference in their world. And just a story with my experience with this. It was 4 years post-injury for me. And I happened to actually be at the movie theater, and there was a rec therapist that I had that saw me there, and she said, "Oh, Brandis, we are talking about you. There are 2 young girls in the hospital right now. Would you want to come talk to them?" And I thought, oh, okay, like I've never done this before, but certainly I will. And I went and saw them in the hospital, and I never knew the true impact that I had until I met up with them. Maybe it was 8 years later, and they said to me, you know, that was really important to me that you came and talked to us. And I never knew that 2 hours that I spent with them that would have such a big impact on their life. So what does a peer match look like? A peer match looks like for someone coming and looking for a peer to contact a peer coordinator and say, you know, really, this is what I'm looking for. This is the type of information that I'm looking for. Who do you have out there? And we'll do our best to find someone, you know, that is going through these same experiences that you are, and that's going to want to meet up with you. And for someone that wants to become a peer mentor, what that would look like is, I mean, right now, if someone wanted to be a peer mentor, they probably would be doing it on Zoom chat or on the telephone. So that is still available for people. But after the world opens up a little bit more, it may look like, you know, coming to the office to meet with someone one-on-one, maybe going out for coffee with them, going out for dinner, and just being able to talk about what's going on in a comfortable and relaxed atmosphere. And there will be some information that's given at the end for Steve, so that you can contact him to let him know that you're interested in either becoming a peer mentor or you're looking for a peer mentor, so that we'll be able to reach out and find that for you. So that is everything here. My slideshow. So I just want to see if there is any questions out there.
Thanks, Brandis. We had, and thank you for a great presentation. We have a couple of questions that have come in. The first one, perhaps I will assist, but it's from James Teague. He asks, do we touch on employment? And after I give my 2 thoughts, I always open it up for my teammates if they have anything to help guide me. So James, we don't have a specific program on employment. However, all of our client service coordinators and our peer coordinator certainly have knowledge and background on components of employment. So it's kind of a soft yes. There isn't a dedicated team of 2 or 3 that works specifically on employment. But certainly, if you have questions about this, any one of the staff within SCI Alberta have experience with this. We have some of our teammates that have a tremendous amount of experience. I'm thinking in particular about Guy Coulombe, who's got 35 years experience in Alberta. So we do help on this, even if there isn't certainly somebody with a specific title of employment coordinator. Yes, it is something that we will help with. So if anyone has any questions on that, by all means, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll do everything we can to help. On another side note, the government of Alberta has certainly been made aware that there is a gap in the vocational rehabilitation and physical disability employment component in Alberta. So this is an active conversation. I've had quite a few conversations with the government of Alberta on this. It's the government, so nothing works very quickly, but they are beginning to ask some at least strong questions about this area. I hope that we've answered your question, James. If not, please please feel free to you know, pose another question or let us know if it hasn't been addressed. Any one of my teammates have anything else to kind of add on employment?
I do, absolutely. There are different programs out there with the government, as well as Ule was saying, that can really help the process of getting back to employment as well. And so these might be, you know, if there's a problem with accessibility getting into the building, if there's a problem with a specialized desk that you may need specialized equipment, there are programs out there with the government that can help you with that. So if you come to us, certainly we'll be able to provide you with the service to link you to those resources. And also, I mean, if it comes to a peer relationship in employment, seriously, as Ole was saying, there is a lot of people out there that have experience that can certainly talk you through it and let you know how they get through their days. Yeah, so I hope that'll answer your question.
And then we have a couple of other follow-up questions, which both are from Beto. And one is, have we seen people with COVID-19? And I will open this up to my teammates, but as of yet, I haven't actually had any reports of any of our community members with a spinal cord injury having COVID. So I'll open it up to any of my teammates. Has anyone actually heard of our community members having COVID? I don't think anyone has, so which is excellent news. So the answer is that one, no, we haven't yet seen anybody with COVID, which I'm quite happy about. I'm sure it's just a matter of time, unfortunately, but certainly it's something that so far has been pretty good news. The next question is, in our experience, is there a specific time, so this one's definitely Brandis and Steve, a specific time after injury where people are more ready to connect with peers? For example, someone with a new injury versus someone with more experience. I'll direct that one to you, Brandis.
Okay, so, I mean, two parts to this. That would either be the person that's looking for a peer or a person that's wanting to be a peer. And the answer to that is, I mean, we can never tell someone how long it's going to take for them to be ready to talk to someone. That's absolutely different for everyone. It's not a definitive answer that I can give you. I think that being a peer, you're going to know when you're ready because you're going to be comfortable talking to people about your life and everything that's going on. And at that point, you'll probably say, hey, I'm ready to be talking to people about this. And on the same respect, when someone's newly injured, it's the same thing. Are you comfortable yet to be able to talk to someone about your questions? And there really is no time frame on that. And certainly you can contact us at any time. It doesn't even matter if you're 15 or 20 years post-injury, we can connect you with someone.
Thanks, Brandis. When Steve gets his presentation, Steve may be able to expand on that a little bit as well as our peer coordinator. Thank you so much. And as a note, the last point of question, Dr. Ho has made a great point. I agree with it entirely. It's a statement to all that there is strong research with evidence-based approaches to vocational rehabilitation that we need to adopt in Canada. Unfortunately, Alberta's vocational rehabilitation is terrible. It is a significant gap. The government knows it. The question is, how are they going to address it? And we will see how that moves forward. There is some strong push towards actually doing a review of the physical disability portfolio in Alberta, the Alberta government right now. So I'm very curious to see how that continues. We will see how that goes, Dr. Ho. You have your ear to that sort of, sounding board as much as I do. So I'll certainly keep everyone up to date. Thank you, Brandis. And now I will turn it over to Steve and Pam, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen now, and hopefully this works.
Oh, success. There you go.
All right. Now the biggest thing is, will I be able to go forward? There we go. So as mentioned before, my name is Pam. I work at the Glenrose on the spinal cord unit. So I am going to be reviewing kind of what happens on Unit 3B. And then Steve is going to take over and talk about what happens from the peer side up in Edmonton. So on Unit 3B, all patients that come in either have a spinal cord injury or general neurology, and all patients are assessed by recreational therapy within the first week. Shannon did a great explanation of what rec therapy does, and it's very similar in our hospital. So we look at a lot of leisure education, community planning, and resources. We do have a pool at the Glenrose, so we have the opportunity to do aquatic assessments and aquatic therapy. We do some art skill development, FES support, and then review of options for physical activity and funding. So the leisure access pass that's available in the city of Edmonton, and then we talk about returning to travel. Throughout the admission, the patients work towards all these goals to be more independent in their leisure needs, and they are treated about 2 to 3 times a week for about an hour to kind of go over all those things listed above. Every patient is different, and depending on what they require will be what we talk about during the week. If we find that during their admission that we don't have enough time to review all of the goals, we won't have enough time to go over all the activities, then they can be referred to our specialized outpatient rehab program. When we go to outpatients, we do look at more community access and our community transitions versus from an inpatient point of view. Since COVID, our activities have changed within the hospital. So just like all community pools, our pool is closed. We don't have that opportunity to get out and do community transitions. We don't have opportunity for group education. And then it's limited our ability to reach out to Spinal Cord Injury Alberta and have our peers come into the hospital. One of the other things that's offered is our Spinal Cord Essential Living series. And so this is very similar to Calgary as well, where it is a joint education with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta, and it's with a bunch of team members from the Glenrose. So interdisciplinary teams are all involved in the education series. Each topic has a professional, and we have a peer who comes in to share their lived experience, coordinating, and we coordinate the speech together. We were starting this just before COVID, and so we actually haven't been able to finish all 12 series yet, or sessions in the series. I think we only got through about 4 or 5, and so hopefully we'll be able to start that up soon. We are slowly opening up more opportunity to have small groups, and so hopefully our education series will start. Before the Essential Living series, we had what we called lifestyles, and so it was a 1-hour session weekly to discuss different topics like relationships, preparing for discharge, returning to activity. We always had a guest speaker who was a patient previously at the hospital to come talk about their lived experience and share their experience, I guess, on whatever topic we had for that day. After patients are discharged, they do come back to our clinic as well. Rec therapy doesn't always see everybody in clinic, but this is probably one of our biggest points where we can really focus on some of the activities that happen in the community. This has given people an opportunity to go home, to get settled, to be able to kind of figure out what they're really interested in, how it really is going to look now that they're home, now that they don't have the support of the hospital staff. And so rec therapy, I think, is a bigger part in our clinic when we're looking at access to the community, whether it's gyms, fitness, swimming, travel, transportation, anything along those lines. It also offers opportunity for the patients to ask questions that they may have had come up. since they've been discharged. And then we always review the importance of the peer support through Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. I think that's probably the biggest thing that all of our clinics patients take out, is that they need to make sure that they're connected with that team. Some of the community opportunities within Edmonton area. So these are just things that we will talk about from a treatment point of view when you're in the hospital. So for physical activity like the YMCAs, they have the FES cycling there, accessible pools, Equality Fitness, the U, I think the U is on here. City of Edmonton facilities for more classes, seated yoga, things like that. Again, aquatic centers, and then Wheelchair Sports Alberta, Paralympic Sports Association. Some of the creative community opportunities are city art centers. So painting, cooking, knitting, all of these variety of classes available. AMSA, which is a painting, there's senior centers. I understand not all people with lived experience or can go to the senior center, but it does help with some of those activities. With COVID, we definitely talk about more of the virtual resources now. So there's lots of online seated yoga classes, online how to paint classes, and then of course these wonderful webinars with Spinal Cord Injury Alberta. I think this is Steve.
Awesome. Thank you, Pam. Did anybody have any questions about that? Looks good. All right. All right. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit about what the peer program is, kind of in Edmonton and around Alberta, I guess. We'll start with the Glenrose because that's where I spend most of my time, or a lot of my time. So obviously prior to COVID, we spent a lot of the evenings, or we had once a month peer evenings in the hospital for new injuries. We're going in. Most of the time what I'd like to do is, before going in, get a feel for what type of patients are in there right now, what age, genders, injury levels. And then I'd like to, reach out to some of our peer mentors and invite them to come in. Some of them that would have the same injuries. And this would, kind of answer some of their questions, get them involved right away with the peer program. And hopefully this would, help them with their stay and improve when they leave the hospital. We also do, obviously, SCI Alberta goes into the Glenrose when you're first injured. This also is another opportunity to meet with somebody that has an injury. They can match. This is where we do introductions. Again, we're meeting with the peer, or introducing the peer program, getting to know the clients a little bit. And of course, we talk a little bit about the importance of a peer program. Also, SCI Alberta joins in with the Glenrose Clinic conferences. This is for anybody that has any issues or any questions once they get discharged from the hospital. Maybe at the point of when they were in the hospital, they didn't feel like they wanted to speak with anybody, or they didn't have any questions. This would give them an opportunity to reach out and get spinal cord injury involved, and hopefully match them up with a peer. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so the peer program prior to COVID-19. All right, so peer nights at the Glenrose, I spoke about that a little bit before. We also like to do lunches, dinners, or barbecues. We try and get together once a month to do something in the community for anybody that's been discharged from the hospital. And this gives us an opportunity to, meet new people, meet friends, ask questions, bring up conversation. Of course, again, it's to be able to speak with people living the same lifestyle as you are, or with an injury. We also have our SCI Alberta's Christmas dinner every year. That's one of our, bigger events. Calgary has one as well down at I'm not sure if they do it at the Foothills anymore, but they also have one. Every year, Spinal Cord Injury Alberta also does a summer barbecue here in Edmonton. And all these events, they're open to anybody. Everything's going to be posted on our social media as always. And of course, that's when things go back to normal. One-on-one peer mentoring. This obviously can be done in person. This is, if you don't want to join these large lunches, dinners, barbecues, if you don't want to come to the Christmas parties, but you feel like you wanted to talk to somebody or you had questions, this is where the peer mentoring really comes into play, where you can sit down, we can find somebody, again, like Brandis said earlier, with the same age or around, same injury or around, gender, and hopefully this, you can have some of your answers or your questions answered. All right, moving on to the next slide, please. Now, since early March, things have changed. Obviously, COVID has changed a lot of those outings, so we've resorted to it online. So a lot of our group chats now online. We do it bi-weekly using this, the Zoom app. Again, you can find all the information on social media. We try and post those, at least a week in advance. That gives you an idea. We're also going to post some of the upcoming events or topics. So maybe there's one of those that interests you, you really want to circle it. But I find all these very informative. As Brandis said as well, an all-female group chat. She's had some great success with this. It's a great, safe place. Get together, have answers, have some questions answered, or just have a good time. From what I hear, we also wanted to let everybody know that we do have a Facebook spinal cord injury peer group. There's about 140 members, as you can see. Again, it's just another option. Maybe you don't want to talk to people, you don't want to be face to face, but you have questions. We want people to feel safe going there, asking those questions. And a lot of those guys, you're reaching out to a pretty large group. You're going to get some good answers, hopefully, and you get your questions answered. Sorry. And then we are doing the bi-weekly SCILS webinars that you're attending right now. Very informative. I think these are one of the best. These, you get to listen to peers like Brandis and myself, some lived experience. Each webinar, we try and focus on having one peer join in, at least somebody with lived experience. And we team up with some of the, the best in the business when it comes to the Foothills and the Glenrose, like Pam and Shannon. Now, since we can't meet one-on-one, we also can do one-on-one virtual peer support. So now you want to speak with somebody one-on-one, you can't meet up in person. Obviously, we can do these online. It doesn't matter what format you want to use, whether it's Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, Facebook. Our mentors are willing to meet with anybody online at any time using any channel. And I just want to finish it off by saying, if you're, feeling like you have a lot of questions, but you're not ready to reach out, online content, there's a lot of good stuff online. You have to be careful somewhat what you read or what you see, just like anywhere else. But, SCI Alberta has a great Facebook page. There's some content on there. There's also, our Instagram page and of course our YouTube page. The YouTube page goes back quite a while. There's a ton of content, whether like things from getting in and out of your wheelchair into your car, transferring into a shower, having raising children, anything along those lines. And it's all directly from people using a wheelchair, so it's very informative. So that's a kind of a basic look at what our peer program looks like. And I just wanted to know, or open it up for anybody that has any questions at this time.
Thank you, Steve. We have a couple of additional questions that have come up, and these are good questions. These are kind of a little bit broader. Beto's got some great questions today. So he's asking, do we have any recommendations to improve community reintegration for people living outside major urban areas? That's like a $5 million CIHR research program right there, Beto. Thanks. Good question. So there's some things that come to mind. I'm curious. So for all of our presenters and panelists, you know, and also Alicia joining us, what do you guys think about that question?
I know that I can just speak for some of the patients that come through the foothills that are living in rural areas. It's definitely a huge, huge struggle and a huge barrier. And I think like our biggest go-to is really, again, with the like self-advocating and, you know, figuring out what it is you need and really what it is you want, and not being scared to talk to the town or the community. And, you know, even if it's as simple as advocating for a new piece of equipment at the gym that you can get into, but one piece of equipment might really make a huge difference on your life.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah. Follow that up a little bit. Like, people don't really understand what you need until you tell them. So whether you're in a wheelchair or not, speaking out is the best thing you can do, right?
I also want to touch on, again, what we've been talking about, or Steve and I talked about, is just peers. I had no idea until I did a little more looking around how many people there really are in these smaller towns or smaller regions that with spinal cord injuries that maybe don't know about each other that we can link up. For instance, I didn't know that there would be 4 or 5 young females all in the Lethbridge area, and they didn't know that either. So if we can connect peers that way, they can talk about reintegrating into the community, the things that have worked for them and really what's out there and what they've tried. I think that's going to be a big help as well.
Very well said. One of the components that we are trying to improve on is our peer outreach in Alberta. And one of the absolute sort of, you know, powerhouses of peer outreach and spinal cord injury across Canada is BC. And they have a different model, and they have a lot more reach into rural areas as well. So, you know, from the aspects of looking at it from an organizational perspective, how can we help? We can't, you know, it's just like BC, it's a very large area. We can't have client service coordinators in all areas physically, but the way to kind of help that and mitigate it is typically to try to get as robust a peer network as possible. So everything you're mentioning there, Brandis, about having, you know, 4 or 5 young women with a spinal cord injury in the Lethbridge area, and that multiplies. There's many other regions across Alberta that's like that. So it's a tough nut to crack, but I think that the biggest weapon we have for it is peer, and a better developed peer network to try to help community reintegration. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? That is an excellent question. And Beto asked this question because it's one of his areas of research topics. So he's kind of putting a nice little loaded question on there. I'm sure Beto has some thoughts on that one as well. Another question, I think it'll be our last question for the day. Another one that's a good question, a big question. What are our opportunities to improve collaborations between clinicians and Spinal Cord Injury Alberta during hospital stays? So how can we become better between the Glenrose and the Foothills and Spinal Cord Injury Alberta to really enable more clinician direct integration with the spinal cord injury patients? What does the panel think about that?
I think we're well on our way right now. I think the educational series is a great start to work together as a team. This webinar as well is a great opportunity for Spinal Cord Injury Alberta to work with the Glenrose and reach out to patients or wheelchair users in the community.
Thank you, Steve. Any other thoughts from the panel?
I think that as a recreation therapist, it's a huge component of you know, what we kind of strive to do with our patients. So I think that, you know, for us to kind of take that on as part of the leisure education piece in the rehab practice is really fitting in what we're really trying to, you know, what outcomes we're really looking for. So I think, like, you know, like Steve said, even with this webinar and connecting with Brandis as well as Steve, to be able to have that connection to pass on to our patients kind of right from the get-go. So depending on, or regardless of if they're ready to talk to a peer, they at least have the resources to do so when they are comfortable.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say one more thing too, is by having the connection with the Glenrose and the Foothills like this in Spinal Cord Injury Alberta, our members from Spinal Cord Injury, they can reach out to myself or Brandis or anybody and give us an idea of what they would like to see in rehab, or what works for them or what doesn't, and we can relate that back to the hospitals. And I mean, not to say that they're like, not that we're going to improve what they're doing, but to give them an idea of, you know, what has worked really well for others in the past. I think that's pretty important.
Well said. This is a great collaboration. I love the fact that we have the Glenrose and the Foothills and Spinal Cord Injury Alberta all on the same webinar. I think it's fantastic. Also to draw your attention to, you probably will have had a poll that's popped up here. Joanna is going to make sure that we all have a chance to contribute before we sign off in the next sort of 2 or 3 minutes. This is one that we're very interested in. All the polls are important, but all of the community members here are very much encouraged and to contribute to what are the areas that you really are interested in: community living, active living, medical, or research. It may be difficult to pick one or the other, but we're really looking to see where your favorites are so that we can begin to guide these webinars to really the content that you would like to see delivered. And let's see. Oh, great. Beto says, thanks everyone for sharing all your questions. Thank you, Beto, for asking a lot of hard questions. And I think that now we're really just up for time. All I'm going to do is just make sure that I punch up the last screen so that our community members can see who to contact. If you have any further questions, if I can do this and advance the slide. So please feel free to visit us on any of our social media platforms. If you have any other questions, the gentleman who we would direct your initial questions to is Steve Crochetier as our peer coordinator. If you have any specific questions on there, Steve's an expert at delegating and having us all work as a team and answer those questions if it's not suitable for him. So please don't hesitate. Visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. All of these presentations are actually made available on YouTube and also on Facebook. And as a last shout out, thank you so much always to our friends at Praxis, Joanna and Charlene, who helped make this possible through the Zoom platform. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists, Brandis, Steve, Shannon, and Pam. That was an excellent presentation, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you, everyone.